The evening sun cast long shadows across the Epsilon colony, a quiet human settlement nestled on the edge of explored space. Dasom Lee, a 7-year-old girl with bright eyes and a curious smile, played among the hydroponic gardens her parents had carefully cultivated. Her small hands traced the leaves of newly sprouting vegetable plants, her imagination running wild with dreams of exploring the stars. Nearby, her uncle Hyun Kim was working on maintaining the colony's communication systems. He watched her occasionally, a protective smile crossing his weathered face. The colony was peaceful, a testament to human determination and resilience in the vast emptiness of space. Without warning, the first explosions tore through the settlement's outer defenses. Plasma rounds erupted from massive Imperial battleships that seemed to materialize from nowhere, blocking out the warm sunset with their menacing silhouettes. Alarms blared, their harsh sounds cutting through the previous tranquility. Hyun grabbed a nearby emergency communication device, his hands shaking as he tried to alert the colony's defense systems. But it was too late. The Imperial soldiers were precise, brutal, and clearly not interested in negotiation. They moved with calculated efficiency, targeting critical infrastructure and civilian areas with equal ruthlessness. Dasom froze. The garden around her transformed from a place of life and growth to a landscape of destruction. Burning debris fell around her, and the sounds of distant explosions mixed with the terrified screams of colonists. Her small frame trembled, but she remained rooted to the spot, unable to comprehend the sudden violence. An Imperial soldier noticed her. Unlike the random chaos of the attack, this moment was deliberate. He raised his weapon, focusing on the lone child among the burning plants. Hyun saw everything happening in a terrible slow-motion sequence. He screamed, his voice raw with desperation, but sound seemed to move too slowly in the war-torn landscape. The weapon discharged. Dasom's small body crumpled instantly, falling among the destroyed hydroponic plants. Her dreams, her potential, her entire future erased in a single calculated moment. Jay Park, the colony's leader, emerged from a damaged command center. The scene before him was a nightmare of destruction. Bodies of colonists lay scattered, buildings burned, and the once promising settlement looked like a graveyard of human hopes. But it was Dasom's small, lifeless form that broke something fundamental inside him. Survivors began to gather. Their shock slowly transformed into a cold, burning rage. This wasn't just an attack. This was a deliberate massacre. The Imperial forces hadn't just destroyed buildings or infrastructure. They had murdered a child, an innocent, defenseless child. Hyun collected evidence methodically. Damaged communication logs, video recordings, physical remnants of the attack. Each piece of documentation was a testament to the brutality they had witnessed. His hands, usually steady when working with complex communication systems, now shook with a mixture of grief and emerging anger. Hours passed. Rescue teams from nearby, human outposts arrived, their faces grim as they surveyed the destruction. Medical teams moved among the survivors, treating wounds and collecting information. But nothing could heal the fundamental wound inflicted on this community. As night fell, the colony looked like a graveyard. Burned-out structures silhouetted against the starry sky, a reminder of how quickly peace could be shattered. Survivors huddled together, their whispers carrying a promise of something more than just grief. Jay Park stood at the center of the devastation, looking up at the stars where the Imperial ships had disappeared. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with a determination that would soon transform into something the Galactic Empire could never anticipate. Dasom's small body, covered respectfully by a white sheet, became a symbol, not of defeat, but of a coming storm. The Imperial forces had made a catastrophic mistake. They had forgotten one crucial detail about humanity. When pushed, humans do not break. They fight back. In the quiet of the destroyed colony, surrounded by the evidence of incredible violence, a new chapter was about to begin. A chapter written not in tears, but in cold, calculated revenge. The stars watched silently, bearing witness to the beginning of something the Galactic Empire would soon deeply regret. The communication center on Earth buzzed with intense activity. Seok Choi stood before massive holographic displays, his fingers moving rapidly across quantum data networks. Images from the Epsilon Colony massacre played on repeat, each frame burning with the evidence of imperial brutality. Military strategists and diplomatic experts gathered in the secure war room. The typical bureaucratic hesitation that often characterized human diplomatic responses was completely absent. Instead, a cold, calculated anger filled the space. Elena Rodriguez, the lead diplomatic coordinator, reviewed the collected evidence. Her team had already begun preparing a response that would send a clear message to the Galactic Empire. This wasn't going to be a standard diplomatic protest. This would be a warning with teeth. Quantum communication networks began to light up. Advanced AI systems processed every piece of data from the attack, creating complex strategic models. Computer screens showed potential strike zones, imperial infrastructure vulnerabilities, and precise technological countermeasures. Seok analyzed the imperial attack patterns. They had become complacent, believing human colonies were easy targets. Years of peaceful expansion had made the Galactic Empire believe humans were weak, diplomatic, unwilling to escalate conflicts. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Military hardware began moving. Stealth spacecraft were prepared, their quantum-entangled weapon systems charged and ready. These weren't standard military vessels. These were precision instruments of strategic communication designed to demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority. Intelligence teams worked around the clock. They intercepted Imperial communications, decoded strategic networks, and prepared a comprehensive understanding of the Empire's military and communication infrastructure. Every weakness would be exploited. The message being prepared was simple and direct. It wasn't just a warning. It was a promise of total systematic destruction. The coordinates of potential strike zones were being calculated with mathematical precision. The Imperial leadership would understand exactly how vulnerable they were. Elena worked on the diplomatic communication. The language was clinical, precise, without emotion. But underneath the calm words was a clear threat. Withdraw. And face consequences or be completely dismantled. No room for negotiation. No space for misunderstanding. Seok's team developed quantum communication protocols that would bypass traditional defensive systems. The Imperial networks would receive the message simultaneously across multiple communication channels. There would be no way to block or delay the transmission. Military analysts began mapping out potential response scenarios. Each potential Imperial move was countered with multiple human strategic options. The preparation was thorough, leaving nothing to chance. Psychological warfare teams prepared detailed information packages. They would ensure that not just the Imperial leadership, but other galactic civilizations would understand the precise nature of the Imperial attack. The murdered child would become a symbol of Imperial brutality. Advanced AI systems ran millions of potential scenarios every minute. War simulations, diplomatic engagement models, technological response strategies. Everything was being calculated and recalculated. The mood was not one of revenge, but of cold, calculated response. Humanity would show the Galactic Empire that attacking their most vulnerable was a catastrophic mistake. Specialized communication drones were prepared. These would carry the warning message, equipped with quantum encryption that made them virtually undetectable and untraceable. They would penetrate Imperial communication networks like digital ghosts. Elena looked at Seok. No words were needed. They both understood what needed to be done. The response would be precise, overwhelming, and leave no room for misinterpretation. As global time moved forward, the preparation reached its final stages. Military vessels moved into strategic positions. Communication networks hummed with potential energy. The entire human strategic apparatus was aligning, focused on a single objective. Make the Galactic Empire understand that humanity was not a soft target, that attacking a child meant total war. The stars outside the communication center seemed to wait, silent witnesses to the preparation of a response that would change galactic politics forever. Seok's final command was simple. Prepare. Transmission. Full systems engaged. The countdown began. The first strike came without warning. Wu Jin's fingers moved across quantum control interfaces, guiding weapon systems with surgical precision. Imperial communication networks collapsed instantly, like a house of digital cards falling in perfect sequence. Fleet Commander Kai Henderson watched from the central command ship. His eyes reflected the holographic displays showing multiple simultaneous attacks. This wasn't traditional warfare. This was a technological demonstration of absolute superiority. Quantum-entangled weapon systems targeted Imperial infrastructure with mathematical perfection. Military bases disappeared not in massive explosions, but in controlled, precise erasures. No unnecessary destruction, just systematic elimination. The Imperial defensive systems never stood a chance. Humanity's technological capabilities were generations ahead of what the Galactic Empire understood. Advanced AI algorithms predicted and neutralized defensive responses before they could even be initiated. Communication relays across Imperial territories began shutting down, first slowly, then with increasing speed. Each network collapse was a calculated move, removing the Empire's ability to coordinate or communicate effectively. Wu Jin's team had developed weapons that could penetrate quantum shields previously, thought impenetrable. Energy signatures shifted and changed, making traditional tracking methods useless. The human attacks were like ghosts moving through solid walls. Military research stations vanished without dramatic explosions. Entire communication networks went dark in milliseconds. The demonstration was clinical, almost elegant in its execution. Orbital defense platforms around Imperial core worlds suddenly found their systems compromised. Weapon systems turned inward, creating internal chaos. No external force appeared to be attacking, yet destruction happened from within. Kai understood the psychological impact of their strategy. This wasn't about total destruction. This was about showing overwhelming superiority. Every targeted strike sent a clear message. Humanity could dismantle the Imperial infrastructure at will. Advanced nanite technologies infiltrated complex Imperial computer systems. They didn't destroy, they reprogrammed, redirected, creating confusion and breakdown from inside the networks. Each nanite was a precise surgical tool. Energy signatures of human weapon systems remained completely undetectable. Imperial sensors registered nothing until complete system collapse. The technological gap was so significant, it seemed almost like magic. Specialized quantum communication drones moved through Imperial territories, gathering intelligence and simultaneously disrupting communication protocols. They were invisible, undetectable, moving like digital phantoms. Wu Jin's team had spent years preparing these technologies. What seemed like an instant demonstration was actually the result of decades of research and development. Every weapon system, every communication disruption was a carefully crafted instrument. The human response wasn't emotional. It was calculated, precise, demonstrating technological capabilities that made traditional warfare look like children's games. The Imperial leadership would understand they were dealing with a civilization far beyond their comprehension. Entire military communication networks went dark. Supply chains collapsed. Strategic command centers found themselves suddenly isolated, unable to communicate or coordinate. The human attack was a digital surgical strike. Kai watched the holographic displays with calm concentration. Each green indicator represented a successful system neutralization. No excitement, no anger, just professional execution of a carefully planned strategy. Research facilities that had been developing weapons against human colonies simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, but systematically removed from operational status. The precision was almost artistic in its implementation. Wu Jin's final command sequences removed any potential for Imperial counterattack. Communication pathways were not just blocked, they were completely redesigned, redirecting Imperial systems into infinite loops of digital confusion. The technological demonstration lasted less than 12 standard hours. By the time Imperial leadership understood what was happening, humanity had already achieved complete strategic dominance. No massive explosions, no dramatic space battles, just a cold, calculated technological dismantling that showed the true depth of human scientific capabilities. The message was clear. Attacking humanity's most vulnerable would result in total, precise, and overwhelming technological response, the HFY. Stars remained silent, cold witnesses to a new era of galactic understanding. Min Park studied the holographic displays, tracking every intercepted Imperial communication. The psychological warfare was about to begin, and precision would be key. Each transmission, each leaked piece of information would be carefully calculated to maximize impact. Rachel Chen, the media strategy expert, prepared a comprehensive information package. The story of Dasom Lee would become more than just a tragedy. It would become a galactic symbol of Imperial brutality. Imperial communication networks showed growing panic. Their military infrastructure had been dismantled so quickly and precisely that leadership couldn't comprehend the scale of their defeat. Intercepted messages revealed deep confusion and mounting terror. Min's intelligence team began releasing carefully curated evidence, detailed recordings of the Epsilon colony attack, forensic reports showing the deliberate murder of the child, communication logs that exposed the Imperial forces' cold calculation. The psychological operation targeted multiple levels. First, the Imperial leadership would feel isolated and exposed. Second, other galactic civilizations would witness the human response. Third, they would demonstrate the moral high ground. Rachel designed media packages that would spread across quantum communication networks. Each story highlighted Dasom's innocence, her love for gardening, her dreams of space exploration, her brief life cut short by senseless violence. Holographic displays in neutral space stations began showing the evidence, not as propaganda, but as a clinical presentation of facts. The murdered child's image became a universal symbol of resistance against unprovoked aggression. Intelligence algorithms tracked the emotional response across different civilizations. The impact was immediate and profound. Sympathy for humanity grew exponentially. The Imperial Empire found itself increasingly isolated. Min's team leaked specific communication transcripts that showed the Imperial military's casual attitude toward civilian casualties. Every intercepted message painted a picture of a brutal, unfeeling military machine. Psychological profiles of Imperial leadership were compiled and strategically distributed. Their weaknesses, their fears, their internal conflicts became public knowledge. No detail was too small to be weaponized. Communication networks began showing the human response as a measured, precise action, not emotional revenge, but a calculated response to a specific war crime. This distinction was crucial in shaping galactic perception. Rachel developed holographic presentations that showed the technological superiority without appearing threatening. Each demonstration made it clear that humanity could have done much more, but chose restraint. Imperial communication channels became flooded with carefully designed psychological triggers. Doubt, fear, and uncertainty spread like a digital virus through their networks. The human strategy was breaking them from within. Min watched as the psychological pressure began to show results. Imperial military communications became increasingly fragmented. Leadership started blaming each other. Internal conflicts emerged rapidly. Neutral galactic civilizations began requesting more information. The human response was always the same, a calm, precise presentation of facts. No emotional manipulation, just clear evidence. The story of Dasom Lee transformed. From a single tragedy, she became a symbol of resistance. Her image appeared in communication networks across multiple star systems, a silent accusation against Imperial brutality. Psychological warfare teams worked around the clock. Every communication, every leaked document was a precise instrument designed to isolate and demoralize the Imperial leadership. Rachel's media strategy ensured that the human response was seen as proportional and justified. They weren't seeking total destruction, but precise, calculated justice. Intelligence algorithms tracked the emotional and political impact. The human strategy was working perfectly. The Imperial Empire was being dismantled, not just technologically, but psychologically. Min looked at the final reports. The psychological operation was complete. The Imperial leadership was confused, isolated, and increasingly desperate. They had been broken not by weapons, but by the precise application of information. The stars watched silently as a new chapter in galactic politics was being written. The message was clear. Humanity would protect its most vulnerable with unprecedented precision and resolve. One small child's tragedy had transformed into a universal statement about justice and technological superiority. The negotiation room was silent. Sung Ho sat across from the Imperial representatives, his expression calm and unreadable. Admiral Kim stood behind him, a constant reminder of the technological superiority humanity had demonstrated. Imperial leaders looked defeated. Their communication networks were still partially disabled. Their military infrastructure had been systematically dismantled. They understood now that this was no ordinary conflict. Sung Ho's first words were simple. "You killed a child. Now you will face the consequences." The terms of surrender were not negotiable. Humanity presented a comprehensive document that would reshape galactic protocols. No discussions, no compromises. The Imperial representatives could only listen and accept. New galactic laws would be established. Protections for civilian populations would become absolute. Any civilization attacking children or non-combatants would face total systematic destruction. The message was clear and uncompromising. Admiral Kim reviewed the territorial concessions. Imperial star systems would be demilitarized. Specific regions would come under direct human monitoring. Economic sanctions would be implemented across multiple galactic trade networks. The most critical component was the public accountability. Full documentation of the Epsilon colony attack would be distributed across all communication networks. The murdered child, Dasom Lee, would become a symbol of why such actions would never be tolerated again. Sung Ho's negotiation strategy was precise. No emotional outbursts, no dramatic speeches, just a clinical presentation of absolute terms. The Imperial representatives could only comply or face complete elimination. Technological transfer agreements were included. The Imperial civilization would be required to adopt specific human-developed safety protocols. Their military research would be monitored. Their expansion would be limited. Economic penalties were substantial. Trade routes would be restricted. Technology transfers would be controlled. The Imperial economy would be systematically restructured to prevent future aggressive actions. Admiral Kim ensured that military monitoring would be comprehensive. Quantum communication networks would track Imperial movements. Any slight deviation from agreed terms would result in immediate response. The negotiation lasted less than 6 hours. When it concluded, the Imperial representatives looked like shadows of their previous selves. They had entered believing in their superiority. They left understanding their complete vulnerability. Sung Ho's final statement was simple. This is not revenge. This is justice. Galactic communication networks broadcast the resolution. Other civilizations watched carefully. The message was universal. Humanity would protect its most vulnerable with unprecedented precision and resolve. The terms included complete transparency. Every action, every decision would be documented and made public. No secret military operations would be permitted. Complete accountability was now the standard. Admiral Kim reviewed the final documents. Compensation would be paid to the families affected by the Epsilon colony attack. Educational and medical support would be provided to surviving colonists. Specialized. Human monitoring teams would be stationed in Imperial territories. They would ensure compliance with the new galactic protocols. Any violation would be met with immediate and overwhelming response. The psychological impact was profound. The Imperial civilization understood they had been defeated not just militarily, but morally. Their technological capabilities had been exposed as fundamentally inferior. Sung Ho knew this was more than a resolution of a single conflict. This was a fundamental restructuring of galactic power dynamics. Humanity had demonstrated that technological and moral superiority could coexist. The memorial for Dasom Lee would be established in multiple star systems. Her story would become a teaching moment, about the consequences of attacking innocent populations. When the final documents were signed, no dramatic celebration occurred. Just a quiet understanding that a significant moment in galactic history had been achieved. Admiral Kim looked at Sung Ho. No words were needed. They both understood the weight of what had been accomplished. Justice had been served. Not through vengeance, but through precise, calculated response. The stars remained silent. "Witness,"